everyone, so today we're going to do a video and it'll be done in certain elements so you guys can see the different parts of the project. But we're going to do a stain video and it's a little different than the stain videos I have done before. This one is using a really cool stain. It's a stain and finishing oil. I'm sorry if you can't see that. There you go. It's made by Homestead House. It comes in these small, I think these are half pints, and but a little goes a long way. But this is going to mimic the look of driftwood. So I've got two stains here because one is going to be the driftwood, they call it, which is the gray, and then this one is the white. And so I'll lay down until I'm satisfied several coats of the gray when I build up the color that I like with that. Then I go ahead and I feather in the white stain on top of that and do some blending, and it looks so cool. I've done this a couple of times before and it's come out really nice, the stressors for our client, and this is the look she wanted, so I figured let me show you guys the process. So a couple things about this. Homestead House is who makes Fusion Mineral Paint as well, and I use their paint. I love their paint. It's awesome. Their products are great. This stain is, so it's a little different than a normal stain. Normally you put on a stain, whether it's water or oil base, you lay it down with your applicator and then you wipe it back. This stain, you go ahead and do a thin layer, and then 10 to 15 minutes you let it sit, and then you wipe it back. So it really needs to penetrate that wood. It's not exactly the same as different stains that I've used before. It's a stain and finishing oil, so it needs to penetrate into that wood, and they ask to give it 10 to 15 minutes before you wipe it back. Now, you can recoat as many times as you like to achieve the color that you want. However, you want to make sure you do wait the 9 hours that it does say on the can in between. So I'll go ahead and lay down my first coat today. 10 to 15 minutes later, I will wipe it back, and then I'm just gonna let this sit. I'll start working on the body of it because we're painting that. So I'll start working on that, but this allows me to get started on my project, and then while it's drying, I can go ahead and do my painting. So you don't need much. Gloves I definitely recommend because it is an oil-based product, so it will get messy on your skin. I'm gonna go ahead and set this one aside because we are not going to use the white until we achieve the color that we want with the gray. And so you need an applicator, you need your stain, and pretty much that's it. And then a rag, and that'll come in the next segment when you guys see me wiping it back. So it was a little funny for me at first to use this because I was so used to using the stains, the normal stains that I've used in the past through General Finishes. And using this one, it was just a little odd. I mean, I really had a hard time waiting the 10 to 15 minutes in between to let that, or not in between, but the 10 to 15 minutes to let that go ahead and set up and penetrate. But definitely do that. You'll achieve the best look if you just follow the directions. So definitely stir it every time. I've actually already stirred mine, and I put the lid back on. And so you want to definitely stir in between to make sure you get all of that stuff mixed in. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way, and literally you're just going to dip your applicator in and apply away. You want to apply with the grain, just like any staining project. Don't go crazy. You know, it says to put a thin layer on. So the bottom line with this stain, you have to remember, is the color will be built up with several coats. The process is a little bit longer than as if you were using the General Finishes Java Gel. I basically put one coat on, and sometimes that's all it even takes is one coat on certain woods. This is definitely more of a process, but in my opinion, anytime you're doing any kind of a special finish, and in this case we're trying to mimic a driftwood look, you're gonna have more steps and more time involved. So now what's interesting is when you put this stain on, and because I've used this before, this is not shocking to me, but it appears to do this fisheye thing. And I'll show you guys as soon as I'm done laying down my first coat. And at first I got worried about that because normally that means when you get that fisheye that you're having a reaction. There is no reaction, it's just the type of stain because this has, like I said, it's a stain and finishing oil in one. So, also, what does that mean? Do I have to seal this? No, you do not. It has a sealer built into it, and let me tell you, I have done several pieces in different colors that Homestead House makes, and they're awesome. So you do not, it saves you the extra step of having to put a top coat because that is built into the stain. That's why it's called a stain and finishing oil in one. It is very resilient. It has the same ability as when you're layering a top coat down on top. I'm going over it one more time just to make sure I've gotten every spot covered. And then I'm gonna walk away, set my timer, and come back in 15 minutes. And when I do that, I'll go ahead and show you guys just wiping it back and then what it looks like after that first coat. But let me show you the fisheye I'm talking about. So I'm gonna dip my camera down here for you guys to check it out. And as you can see, and I may need to get closer, but as you can see down in this area, you see what appears to be these little, like I said, they're called fisheyes. And that's not anything to worry about. When you wipe it back, you won't have any of that left behind. So see what I'm talking about? That looks terrible, right? That's what's commonly referred to as like a fisheye. It's when you put something on the surface and it kind of comes back and leaves these fisheyes or spots. This is nothing to worry about with this particular stain because it's got the finishing oil in one, and I have used this before and I've had this reaction before. Once I wipe it back, you'll see none of this. We'll be back in 15 minutes to show you guys after the first coat. Okay guys, so we're back. We're gonna go ahead and wipe this down, and it's been about close to 15 minutes. So here's the thing I told you in the beginning of the video that I want you to keep in mind, and that is your color is going to take a while to achieve. And I'll show you the up close after the first coat. It almost feels like when you're doing this, or looks like I should say, that you're wiping all of that product away that you just put on. And a lot does come off when you're wiping back. However, it is penetrated and it is staining that surface. It just is a different type of stain. It is not heavily pigmented the first time around. You're not going to see the look you want. And the last time I did a project with this, actually, it was the first time I'd used it, so a couple times ago, because I've done this several times now. I was super disappointed. And so I kind of was like, oh no, now what am I gonna do? But I kept going with it, and after about 3 coats of the gray stain, it came out exactly like I wanted. So I wanna show you guys, you can kind of see it, but I wanna show you up close because the gray did take more in certain areas depending on the grain. This will build up. So this is gonna be a fun and interesting video for you guys to follow along with because this does build up. Okay, let me take a look at... Okay guys, so here is after the first coat that's been wiped down. It's been left on about 15 minutes to penetrate, and then I went ahead and wiped it back as you saw in the element before. And like I said, you can see the gray left behind, but you also can see a lot of that natural color of the wood. We're gonna go ahead, not to worry, because this is gonna totally transform and look so different after the 3rd coat. I'll probably put on 3, if not 4 coats. It's just gonna depend on the type of wood that we're working with here and how it builds up. So that is after first coat. We'll be back to finish the rest on the 2nd coat, and I'll show you guys the outcome of that one. Okay guys, so I wanted to show you, this is coat 2 that I put on yesterday, and it's getting darker, so just wanted to show you the progress of this awesome gray stain. Getting ready to do coat 3 right now. I'll let you see it when it's done. Okay, so we have our 3rd coat of stain on, probably 3 of 6. I know, it's crazy, 3 of 6, 6 coats of stain. It's nuts. But you know what? I told you earlier in the video segment in the beginning that it is a different type of stain. It's not your typical stain. It's a stain and finishing oil in one. It penetrates differently into the wood, and this is supposed to mimic a driftwood look. So, you know, full coverage isn't what the end game is with this stain. You could actually leave it the way it is. I'll show you a close-up in just a minute, and it's absolutely beautiful. But for the look I want it a little bit heavier and a little more opaque so that when I apply my white stain, it just is gonna all blend well together. I won't continue showing you my 4th and 5th and last coat of stain. What I'll do is come back in the next segment with my stain process with the Driftwood done, and then we'll move to the next step, which is applying the white stain, which that's where you get to be a little bit more artistic and start figuring out what you really want it to look like. So I'll give you a close-up look here, and I'll see you back on the final. So we're back. We're gonna take a look at the stain process that I've been working on and check out the progress. I'm almost finished. I think I'll probably, because this is what I do with every project, is I kind of obsess over the finish a little bit at the end, making sure that it's blended the way I want. But I wanted to show you where we were at right now. And funny enough, my husband just came out in the shop and asked me, he was helping me move something, and he asked me, wouldn't it have been easier to paint it? And the answer to that is kind of a yes and no. The advantage of this particular product is that it's a stain and finishing oil in one. So it's got the top coat built in. There's no more steps after it dries. I don't have to top coat it. So that's kind of a cool aspect of this product. And the reason I think he asked is because this took me dry time. Yes, it takes longer. The working time, it's so fast. So what I mean by that is sometimes when you're trying to achieve this look with paint, it's not as quick. This really is a quick process as far as putting on the stain. It's just the drying in between before you can reapply your coats. So it's just kind of one of those projects that you have to allow yourself more time, but really it is so simple. It took me this morning, I went ahead and I started to apply my white stain to give it the Driftwood look, and it literally took me like 5 minutes. So, and that was from putting it on to wiping it off, and I've achieved the look that I want. So, you know, the thing with paint is, first of all, this has been sanded down to bare wood, and I had to do that because there was just, the wood needed to be. Sometimes you can get away with the surface being really in great condition, but you have to remember, any condition that the top is in prior to painting it or staining it, if you don't sand that off, it will show through. So nicks, scratches, deep scratches, or things like that are definitely going to show through because you're not getting rid of them, and covering them with paint doesn't really work. So, you know, in this particular case, I did the stain because it was already down to bare wood, and I love doing this process. So, yes, you can paint to achieve this look. The processes are a little bit different. Dry time is longer for the stain. However, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to work the stain to get the look than sometimes it can be with paint. Plus, with paint, you're going to want to put several coats of a polyacrylic on a lighter color, not to yellow it. That's the water-based poly, and that in itself sometimes can just be a pain to try to get. You might have a great looking finish, and then you go to seal it, and you've got a sand in between, and stuff flies in it. So sometimes it's just kind of nice when you have a product that's an all-in-one like this. So yes, you can paint to get this look, but I prefer to do the stain, and in this case it worked out really well. So I'm going to show you guys up close so you can take a look and see what it looks like. Alright guys, here we go. Here is the almost finished, and I say almost because I think I'll probably blend it out a little bit more with some quadruple zero steel wool later today. But I'm super happy with the results. You can see the nice shine that it has to it. It's kind of a satin finish. I will tell you, because if you're curious, I did have 6 coats. Yes, 6, which is a lot of the gray stain. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, this stain is one that builds up over time. It goes on very sheer. So I've got 6 coats of the gray and really just 1 of the white. So anyway, just wanted to show you guys the final top. I'm going to finish this off today, and I'll show you the final project pick at the end of the video. Thanks. All right, you guys, so here we are. We're at the end of the video. I just started shooting this last element for you guys when I realized I did not shoot the segment that showed you how to do the white stain. Completely spaced it. Came out the other day, worked on it, and realized it when I just stood in front of the camera right now that I didn't tape that element for you guys. So I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna explain it to you because it is not difficult. And I'll show you an up close in just a second. But once you achieve the color you want with your first stain, which was the Driftwood gray, once I got the look I wanted, and I wanted a very opaque look. I didn't want to see, in this case, the wood color come through at all. So that's why I put on 6 coats. The dry time between this is 9 hours in between applying coats. So just keep that in mind, that when you're working on a project like this one, it does not take the 24 hours that like a regular gel oil stain would take, but 9 hours before you reapply. So that's a lot of time. Anyway, 6 coats of the gray stain. I achieved the look I wanted, so I came on out here and applied my white stain. Now, how did I do that? Because it's not the same. The gray stain, you saw me put that on, applying it as normal as any stain you would apply. The white, because we're going for an effect of driftwood, I dry brushed that on. So I used my handy, crazy, old, looks like it belongs in the garbage, I call it my dry brush, because it's super fanned out, it's used, it's great for dipping in. I use it for paint, and I used it in this case with the stain, for dipping into the can and just creating a very fanned out, fine technique. And so all I did to achieve this look, the finished part of it with the white stain, was dipped my brush into my stain. I did dab off a little bit, like I do, like I showed you guys in my dry brush video, same technique. I dabbed off a little of the excess, and then I literally just wiped, kind of brush on where I wanted my white stain. Easy as that. I did that over the entire dresser, and I let that sit up for a few minutes, and then I took my rag and I went ahead and I wiped it in. So it's super simple. It isn't anything that you guys are missing by me not taping that segment, but I do apologize. Usually I don't do that. So I guess it's been a busy week. Anyway, I'm gonna give you guys a close-up now. This project was so much fun. I think this is like the 4th time I've done this effect, and I absolutely love it. It comes out just beautiful. It is a little more work, but you know what? Anytime you do any type of a special finish or technique, sometimes they are a little more work, but you know what? It's just so worth it in the end, because it's such a cool look. And to think that it's, you know, a stain all in one, no top coat because it's already built in. It is super duper smooth, and it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. So anyway, it looks beautiful. I'm going to show you guys up close so you can take a look. Please remember to subscribe so you can keep getting my videos, and I appreciate you guys watching. You know, as usual, you can reach out and ask any questions or put any comments below, and I'll make sure I reach back. Thanks so much for watching. All right, you guys, so here is the finished view of the top, because that's what we're really concerned about in this video. I'll show you guys a final picture of the whole entire thing, but as you can see, came out just beautiful. If you remember the shot that I took kind of in the beginning showing you guys how it looks, that's why I told you don't be afraid. The color will build up and you will cover it, and I'm super happy with the way it came out. And just to show you with my brush, since we're all dry, literally I dip in my white stain and I would just drag along wherever I want my white spots, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wipe them back. So there you go.